Click on the effects and avatars.
He's you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Afternoon.
Hello, everybody.
Guys, we've started at precisely 12, but as usual, we're going to give stragglers a couple of minutes to join, so just bear with us. You might also get muted, so keep your chat. There's a lot of people joining today, so keep your chat to the text box if you've got any questions or any concerns or anything you want us to chat about. And I'll do some proper introductions just now. But in the meantime, welcome to another Bites and Bytes event. And like I said, very good turnout today, so we're very excited to share this one with you.
I wasn't joined.
Those of you just joining, we're just going to give it a couple of minutes. We've got lots of people jumping into the lobby and joining the group right now.
Right. Afternoon, everyone.
Hello, and welcome.
Okay, thanks.
While we're waiting, just so that everyone knows, I think a lot of, I recognize lots of names. Lots of you have been to these events before, but today is probably our biggest turnout. It's certainly our largest RSVP. I think we've got 75 people that RSVP'd, and we usually like to keep these events to around 40 people. So it's a hell of a big response, obviously a topic that everyone's interested in. So we're excited to host it. And I, for one, am keen to learn about Entra ID because I don't know much about it. I see the new people joining has slowed down, so we'll probably get started fairly soon. Inayeth, can you give me a thumbs up if you are ready? We're just waiting for Inayeth.
Yeah, thanks so much, Colin. If you could just give me a second and I'll be ready now.
No problem. Okay, guys, so welcome again to another Turrito Bites and Bytes event. For those of you who have been here, you know the drill. We keep it very short and sweet and concise. As you know as well, we send you an Uber food voucher so you can have lunch on us and relax and enjoy the session. We want to keep it informative. A lot of the people in this room are technical. So if you're not technical, I apologize up front. There will be some technical chat. There usually are some demos, some examples of what we're talking about, and that is due to popular demand. We run these things and we're constantly changing them based on what you guys are telling us you want. So technical is what you want. Technical is what we're giving you, and long may it last. I think the feedback from the last couple of sessions has been really positive, and like I said, today in particular has been a huge amount of interest, but not just in this event. In general, we've been getting a ton of requests for help with Entra ID rollouts and configurations. It's probably, I want to say, one of the most topical products that we're talking to customers about currently. So very, very topical, very, very current. And to talk about it today is Inayeth Govender from CloudMania. And he's our certainly resident expert. He's hosted some of these events before. He knows the drill. And as usual, I'm going to hand over to him right away. Keep your questions, if you wouldn't mind, keep them to text, to typing, to the Q&A box. We've been sent a couple of questions up front, and we will answer those at the end of the session. But if you do have anything that pops into your head during the session, feel free to chuck it into the chat. In addition to that, any other ideas of future events, we literally run these things completely based on your input. So if you've got any other ideas, please let us know, and we could do an event on whatever you want in 2 or 3 or 4 sessions time. The next couple are booked out, but we'd love to have more of these and new topics. So let us know. Feedback is hugely welcome. With that, enjoy the show, and over to you, Inayeth. Oops, maybe frozen. Yeah, that's always a pain when you lose your presenter. I would love to talk about Entra ID, but what I know about it, you could write on a small piece of paper, so it's not going to be valuable. Let's give them a couple minutes to reconnect. In the meantime, can I see a show of hands of who's already implemented Entra in their own organizations? Raise your virtual hand. Ten. 12, 13. Okay, 13 out of about 40. So we're running at 25% of you are already using it, vast majority not using it. So hopefully this is interesting to you guys, assuming we get our presenter back. If we don't, Brian, you'd be happy to present about it, right?
I am absolutely ready. The fact that I know far less than you do about this is going to be interesting, but I will certainly give it a crack.
Well, lucky we send you guys lunch, so please feel free to eat in the meantime. I see some new people have just joined. Thank you. We're unfortunately having problems with our presenter, so just bear with us for hopefully another minute or two. And there are new names, so people that haven't been to these events before. Just quickly, we do these events almost every month or two, so let us know if you want to join future ones. But we try and keep it light and to the point, fairly technical. And as you know by now, we also send you lunch. So the idea is that it doesn't take too much out of your day. You are eating presumably anyway. Some of the IT managers in the room haven't had lunch in like 4 years. So probably for you, this is unique. But for the rest of you, hopefully it doesn't waste any time and is very informative and useful. And also just to reiterate, yeah, there. Just to reiterate, we love your input. So we, deliberately, basically for the last year, have done these events completely and utterly based on your input, and anything you can give us is much appreciated. I see Inayeth is back. Let's cross fingers.
Good afternoon, everybody. Colin, thank you so much. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Brian. Apologies, everybody. I had some building done at home, and that goes really south very quickly, especially on the Wi-Fi network. So apologies on that. I'm ready to actually get started now. Just gonna share my screen. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm not sketching up or anything.
No,
We got you.
we got
Okay,
you.
cool.
Let's move back to your Teams screen. There you go.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I think without wasting any more time or further ado, I think I'll jump straight into the presentation. And normally we don't like to actually do death by PowerPoint. So we're just going to do. Sorry.
No, carry on, Inayeth. Don't worry.
Okay, cool. Like I said, we normally don't do death by PowerPoint in these sessions because essentially the session is created for you to get chunks of information that really will impact your business and give you the next level of information and keep you up to date with the trends. So welcome to everybody again, and apologies again for starting a bit late, but let's deep dive into Entra as well. And we're going to cover Entra Suite. But before we go into the Entra Suite component, I just want to bring up some stats that, will resonate with all our techies out there. So as you would know, that prime bad actors right now, prime target for all the bad actors is actually becoming identity. So let's look at some of the stats. More than 4,000 password attacks per second. It's increasing in terms of compromised accounts. Token reply attacks. This is speaking to your artificial intelligence and components that's been used within your organization. And then 66% of these attack paths involved insecure identity credentials. So today's topic, we're going to unpack Entra Suite and how Entra Suite actually comes together from a Microsoft ecosystem to prevent, to assist, and to guide you in terms of your best recommendations from an identity perspective, as well as a secure and private access component as well. The demo that I have set up is typically going to walk through a couple of scenarios, but I'm going to show you one particular area which I found very useful in a client base and in an organizational perspective, which is called verified ID. So let's go back a little bit into the security landscapes and some of the challenges that's arising. So we all agree that we have to adapt to a new hybrid work, which requires seamless and flexible experience for the users, as well as for the IT administrators that are administrating the entire network and watching exactly what's going on and trying to mitigate some of the risks that a business can be exposed to. You will all agree that there is definitely, whichever tool you're using, there's some components, there's some gray areas, and there's some gaps that we need to either consolidate because they're living in a siloed solution, or there isn't a particular policy that's out there that can address it. And I'll give you one example. Europe is deploying a AI policy, so is Brazil, and so is US, so is China. But how does all of these policies talk to each other, and how do they actually seamlessly allow organizations to connect and be able to transact globally as well? There's also inconsistencies and inefficiencies in security controls. Number one is trying to manage to actually manage and track all of these signals that you're now receiving. And then the other component is that you have a higher operational complexity and cost as well, because there's also disjointed solutions out there in the market. Okay, so in comes Entra Suite from Microsoft, which provides you with the secure access for identity from anywhere to any app, to any AI solution or resource. How does it do this? It identifies and the network access solution areas. It covers the following. So you establish a zero trust access control. You can secure access for employees with seamless and user experience. And also you can secure access for customers and guests and partners or suppliers that you work with in your ecosystem. Secure access in any cloud environment or multi-cloud environment or on-premises environment can be extended as well. Okay, so let's unpack it a little bit more. So what does this identity and network access solution area cover a bit more depth? It covers your zero trust, which I've mentioned, which is your identity access and management. And this covers it across your clouds, again on your premise, as well as your application or devices level as well. From a secure access for your employees, it's the trusted network access or zero trusted network access, your secure web gateways or intranet gateways that you can create, your identity governance and your administration behind the identity governance, because it's one to say, I have implemented the governance and the compliance policies, but it's also the admin that's behind it and the audits that come with it that also is really, really heavy and intensive as well and takes lots of man hours. Then you also get covered in terms of your identity protection. So how do you protect password? How do you do single sign-on? How do you do something which is called verified ID? And I've spun up an Azure instance, which is a website that I'm going to show you how verified ID actually works. And then your ID verification. So one that is, a person is listed or it's configured on your system, but how do you ensure that you verify that identity, that this person is authentic? How do you know it's not a deep fake? How do you know that this is not some artificial bot that's trying to get into your system? Then secure access for customers and partners, and external identity and access management is important, right? Now, in the past, all of these components that I'm talking about is not new and brand new to us in IT. You know about it, you are managing it, but what happens is sometimes you're using different solutions and across different stacks that you're trying to put all of this together from a security posture. This is why Entra Suite is really powerful and important, because when I log into it now, you will see that I can do this all from one Entra admin portal. I can go into Zero Trust, secure access for employees. I can do the customer and partner, which is external. And then I can also do my cloud infrastructure management. And I can also do my workload identity and access management, because one is obviously you've got the team that is managing your cloud infrastructure across infrastructure landscape, but then you've also got maybe like a dev team that requires a specific workload and a specific access point or area, and you were able to cover it in the entire Entra Suite. Now, on top of this, what Microsoft has done is they accelerated this with generative AI capabilities, and they've added a component for you to be able to learn this really quickly and use point-to-click to configure most of these settings. So if we zoom into just secure access for your employees, everyone would agree that this becomes usually a help desk issue where you get a lot of tickets trying to access it. I'm trying to get into this application, or I'm trying to do this piece of work and I need access to this. And you're trying to control rogue systems coming in or shadow IT. And this is really how Entra Suite benefits the secure access around employees. Okay, so it covers these points that I've mentioned now, but zooming into the onboarding, making sure that the employee gets the relevant access that they need to be able to do the job that they have actually employed for. Or if there's a promotion, how do you deal with that component of giving them more access, but making sure that the environment is still secure? I'll give you a typical example. In our organization, we have the interns that join our program. And when the interns join our program, they're obviously given laptops, they're given mobile phones in certain instances, and they also have ability to do certain job functions. So if someone joins my team in the Azure space, they need access to the Azure portal, they need access to be able to identify who's a partner versus different types of segments that we're dealing with. And all of that now, you can build a template for that in Entra Suite. And again, those are not something new, but again, you being able to manage it, all of it in one seamless portal, which is the Entra Suite. Okay, so let's talk about secure access for any employee anywhere to any app and any resource. Let's unpack that a little bit more. You can see in the center, we're positioning the Entra Suite, which is how you'll get to be able to do the anywhere to any app to any resource, right? So for any employee, cloud-based or on-premise, your identities, your groups, and roles will be covered. Any location, your HQ, your branch office, your home, or even remote will be covered. I mean, if I have to ask the question, how many of us went to Starbucks and we use the access, the Wi-Fi via Starbucks, and we try to jump onto the company network, unsecure, you don't know what's running there, you don't know how it's working. I'm using Starbucks as an example, but there's many different use cases. Sometimes you might be traveling on holiday and you're in a remote area, or you're in an area that you're not secure, you don't know about the infrastructure there, you're exposing yourself to risks there. Okay, then any platform, whether it's Android, iOS, Linux, your Mac OS, or even your Windows, will also be covered. Any device in terms of corporate and personal can also be covered and extends as well. If we shift to the right-hand side of my screen and we talk about the data, apps, or resources, you can see it covers the Azure infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or data center as a service, your 365, your SaaS solutions, and your website, and even your on-premises domain servers and so forth as well. Okay. Now, the formula for success to get a unified zero trust user access is quite difficult to maintain and quite difficult for you to always be able to get this right. So with Microsoft Entra Suite, there's a baseline best practice that Microsoft is actually deploying across the solution stack, which is the unified conditional access for all resources across the identity, the endpoint, and the network. And then ensuring that the least privilege access is by default given to any one of the templates or blueprints that you do create when you now creating the verified ID and so forth. And this then allows you to pick and choose which application resources, including artificial intelligence, that you want to maybe limit or block from your networks and from your user access, or maybe grant in certain instances, maybe your steerco or your mancos require those tools, and you're able to do it then and manage it much more securely. And then the improved user experience, especially from a remote and from a home or in-office work, is seamless experience, connecting and being able to sync to all of the data on your 365 stack, especially talking to your Microsoft Graph ecosystem, which is the underlying data that your 365 and most of your applications, even Copilot, uses to pull all of that data insights. And then you can also reduce the on-premises security solutions because you don't really need to invest in a whole lot of these solutions to try and pull all of these individual silos together. With the Microsoft Entra Suite, you're actually getting huge value for the money that you invest in a piece of tool like this, which means that you can retire or minimize any dependencies on legacy security solutions that you've got already deployed. But with security, it's always good to apply the onion effect, as we call it, which means that you've stuck in a whole lot of security solutions together. But that doesn't also necessarily mean that it's always the right thing for your organization and for your company. It might create clutter and it might create difficulties for your users to be able to do their jobs. Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to improve your workforce access in terms of your security posture, right? So we've got the one component, which is onboarding of users, and this is employee onboarding and guest onboarding, right? You can use a new feature, which is called face check with your Microsoft Entra verified ID. And I'm not going to use face check today, but I'm going to use verified ID to access a piece of site. But when I go into that demo, I'll show you a bit more. Then you would agree that once you do that onboarding process, either with the guest or the employee, and you verify their identity using the verified ID or face check, you've then got to govern the access control layer. So do they have the access to the right resources as per the onboarding process? Can they do self-service access, reset password, do all of the lovely stuff that they don't really always need to come to support with? And then are they able to get just-in-time access to a piece of, maybe they need access today for a Power BI presentation that they need to do and they need some data, you can grant them just-in-time access. And then also you can do access recertification and lifestyle automation. That covers the entire onboarding process to the offboarding process using automation within the Entra Suite, okay? So the tool there you're going to use in the Entra Suite is called Microsoft Entra ID Governance. The next tool that covers the secure access, which is the continuous risk and assessment and automation, the threat intelligence and gathering of telemetry data, and zero trust adaptive and risk-based access policies is called Microsoft Entra ID Protection, okay? Then it pivots into two other solutions, which is internet access or secure internet access and then also your Entra private access. And as you can see, this posture covers the end-to-end process for the employee, for the stakeholders, and also the IT teams, ensuring that you're actually touching every single component that your infrastructure, your application layer, your data layer will touch. I'll just pause there for a second to see if there's any questions or if there's anything that someone would actually like to ask regarding so far what we've discussed. Are we all good?
I think carry on, Inayeth. I asked everyone politely to put their comments into
In the chat. Okay, cool. We'll address it in the time. Okay, cool. So we covered sort of the different tools and where they fit in from the Entra suite, right? So let's cover sort of the zero trust access policy for identity and network specifically, right? So obviously you've got your identity component and you've got your endpoints, and it could be various endpoints that you're using. As I mentioned and I showed you, it covers quite a lot in terms of Mac OS, your Android, and so forth. Now, obviously, you've got your continuous risk assessment and automation that you can build in, and you've got your threat intelligence and your telemetry data. But a lot of the time in a SOC SIEM environment, you will ask yourself, okay, so I'm getting all of this data. What's next, and how do I apply it, and what, how do I improve the security posture of the organization? This is where the Entra Suite taps into your secure score on your 365 network, and it's able to bring all of that data to you in your dashboard in Entra Suite. It allows you to look at the application layer, the data layer, and the infrastructure layer, and it gives you recommendations using AI. And very soon coming down the line, you'll be able to even use Copilot over the Entra Suite to be able to write scripts if you need to be able to assist you with configurations if need be, and even for you to be able to set it up correctly from the word go. Okay, so I spoke a little bit about AI and artificial intelligence, but let's talk about how the Entra Suite uses it for continuous access evaluation, right? So what it does is it generates real-time evaluation, an engine, basically, that looks at your effective policies that you've got within the organization, and effective policies as well. And then it creates a component of machine learning that continuously learns about your organization. So each Entra Suite, essentially this dashboard and this mechanism, gives you new controls and new conditions with recommendations that you can make to tweak the organization or to adjust the controls within the organization. Sometimes we notice that, let's say, for example, the team that's working on data, if you have too high zero trust, they're unable to access certain databases, they're unable to create their reports, or they're unable to download certain applications, like maybe they use Python and they need to download Anaconda, which is a suite of Python, to be able to do all the statistical calculations for machine learning, and they can't do that. So you don't want to also be in an instance where you're blocking someone completely from accessing the relevant tools and the relevant operational business critical applications that they need to get their job done. So with this continuous access evaluation, you're continuously checking if you still need those tools. If you don't need those tools, you can limit or you can block some access, and you can even use private or secure access to control that in the Entra Suite. Okay, and this is basically what I actually covered in this diagram, right? So you obviously got your signals, you got your decisions that's happening in this machine learning component, and you can see that the four particular levels that it will highlight is allowed, required, block, or restrict, and this is how you manage it across all of your apps and your resources within the Entra Suite. Okay, so ensure least privilege access. I think this one you've probably heard many times on many webinars on many occasions, but to highlight the key component here that Entra ID brings is that it covers the Active Directory component for your on-premise applications that are non-AD based as well, which is critical for you to understand that it can cover and extend to non-AD based, as well as your on-premise applications that abide by AD. then your HR systems, and it has pre-built connectors and pre-built application sites that you can actually connect to in your HR systems. Your enterprise SaaS applications as well as pre-built configurations and templates for you to be able to deploy. And then you've got your other identity providers, like let's say, for example, you're using Okta to do your some of your facial scans and access into your buildings and so forth. You can bring all of that into your Entra ID. You then can launch workflows and create job profiles per department, per area, maybe per business unit that you want to create. You can also launch certain pre-hire workflows for new for new work joins. You can also launch termination workflows that will cover your work from, or maybe move from this branch to that branch as well, which is sometimes very difficult to do and it's manual, or promotions like I mentioned before, or even sometimes when someone has been terminated from the organization or they resign from the organization. So all of it can be created in templates and blueprints that you can save, and you can reuse those, making it really easy from an IT perspective to manage and to govern especially as well. Okay. Then I will zoom into a user experience. So I'm going to switch the gear up a little bit in terms of going to the user now. So how do we make this experience also easy for the user to adopt the piece of technology that we're employing from a security perspective? Because as you would know, and I'm the first one to put my hand up and complain, because as a data scientist, the first thing when I join any organization, I need to download my Python suite. I need to make sure that my machine is set up so that I can run local LLMs and so forth. But in many times, the organization is not equipped to be able to handle that type of onboarding, and I have to send motivations or business cases to be able to do that. But what if you could do this seamlessly using a user experience and templates, and it's now possible using the Entra suite? So to simplify the user experience, whether it's remote or whether it's at office, you can use the face check with the verified ID component. And this technology already exists. Everybody who is using Azure or is authenticating your 365, you already have the Authenticator app. There's 2 additional components that have been added to the Authenticator app. If you open up your Authenticator app, you will actually be able to see on the right-hand corner something called Verified ID now, once you've updated it on whichever device you're using. And that Verified ID, would a few setups or configurations in the Entra suite, you'll be able to give someone almost a digital key card, if you want to call it that. And from that key card, they're able to actually securely access certain things within your organization based on what you've set and what you've configured in the Entra suite. Okay, so that's covering sort of the user experience. I'm going to skip some of these components and I'll tell you why, because I'm actually going to show you how I've configured firewalls and basic secure web gateways into a web application in the demo, and I'm going to walk you through that. Okay. This is just talking about the Copilot experience. So you'll get Copilot that overlays for your Copilot for security, that goes into your Entra suite perspective. You can enable, simplify any complex configurations that you may need, or any questions that you might, ponder about, like, could I do this with Entra suite? And there's a question around rackets earlier, and it is possible for you to connect it, and there's some firmware updates that you need to do first, but I'll cover that question towards the Q&A. Okay, I'm just looking at the time. So just in terms of your first 90 days, and then I'm going to switch into the demo to show you the Entra suite and the web application that I've set up today. So what does your first 90 days ROI look like when you deploy the Entra suite? The first thing that you're going to notice is that you deploy the security controls to identify and protect risky users. Immediately, you're going to see a uptake in terms of the telemetry that you're able to go the granular dashboards that you can pull from the Entra suite, and you'll have more data to identify who's riskier and who's not riskier within the organization. And obviously, all of us as human beings, we are all posed as a risk. We're the first risk to any cybersecurity attack or threat. We know that. So obviously, education and training plays a big part. But then it allows you to segment and for you to be able to then conduct certain trainings and specify or invite groups of people into those trainings because you have more data. Okay, then you can conduct an access review to ensure appropriate system access to individuals, like I mentioned. When I join any organization as a data scientist, it's usually quite difficult for them to understand what types of systems and what types of applications I need to download and if it's secure, if it's not, and then I have to write motivations and so forth. But right up front, you could build these templates. And if the user needs just-in-time access to a specific application for an hour or 2 hours, or even a day or a week, depending on the job to be done, you're able to do that. Once that time has expired, that access revokes back to the normal baseline access group that you've given them, and they can continue with their work as well. Should they need to extend it, there's also a web application and an email that they actually get. So on the web application, they can request using automation, I need 1 hour more, I need 2 hours more, the job took longer than needed. They can write a little motivation, it goes into the automation. You allow to preset on the template there to say, okay, allow the user to request one more extension for another hour. And the automation will handle that process. It doesn't need to be someone in IT looking for all of those things and then approving them, which creates more admin. It's actually done by automation. Okay. And then in terms of protecting your internet traffic using secure web gateways, you're allowed to actually do that through your Entra suite as well. There is a few Azure configurations that you do need to do with your Entra suite to be able to accomplish that, but it's very simple to actually do that using Azure as well as your Entra suite. Then you can look at your VPNs across your system to access quickly certain applications. So you can actually do that and depreciate in terms of those costs as well. So there'll be a saving. And then you can automate your employee onboarding, an end-to-end life cycle that you can create for the onboarding and the offboarding of employees as well. So I'm going to pause there because that is promise you my last Death by PowerPoint slide. And I'm going to switch into the demo. If you have any questions, I'll just take a quick peep in the chat while I'm just refreshing my screen. Okay, everybody's still good. So I'm just going to share my browser. Please, if you can give me a thumbs up or a wave and let me know if you can see my screen.
You're good.
Okay, cool. So this is a demo account that I set up, and you can see the company name is DataWise Technology. It does not exist. I'm the CEO. I wish. And what you notice now immediately, this is very familiar to you. You already know this. myaccount.microsoft.com. You can see all of your devices that are connected. You can see your password, your organization, and so forth and so forth. But what I want to point out to you is something new here, which is the Get Verified ID. And if I click on this Get Verified ID, you're going to see in a few minutes when it loads. This always happens in the demo. It's always slower than it needs to be for some reason.
While we wait for that, Inayeth, we've got a question quickly in the chat, which is from Michael. Is Entra ID a layer on top of Active Directory or replacing Active Directory?
That is a really good question. From an Active Directory perspective, what we hear from Microsoft, they will be slowly phasing out the Active Directory, and they want to bring everything into the Entra suite because it gives you more control and gives you all of these extended capabilities. But I don't have an ETA or a firm date to say it's going to be end of support on this particular day. So it won't replace it immediately now, but some of the benefits and some of the features that I'm showing you now, some of your Active Directory is quite old. It doesn't really cover all of the components. Okay, so now you see that it's opened up the Microsoft Authenticator QR code. This you're also familiar with if you're setting up Authenticator and stuff like that for the first time. So what you will do in this instance is I would go to myaccount.microsoft. I will then scan this, and then on my mobile phone, I get my verified ID there. Now, I will try and attempt to show you what this verified ID looks like. Let's hope it all works good. So let's jump into the Entra suite, and then I'm going to show you what verified ID looks like. So now you would see that this also looks very familiar, right? It's not new tech. It's essentially Microsoft consolidating, bringing all of these features together, overlaying it with AI, and then giving you more features that can make your security posture better. Now, what you would notice is I'm in the Entra Admin Center, and you would start to see the things that I've shown you in the PowerPoint, right? Identity. So under identity, if I expand that blade, you can see I can go to users, I can go to groups, devices, applications, protection, identity governance, and external identities as well. So what it's done is it's taken that components of individual, your P1 and P2 licenses, and it's brought it all together in a complete single pane of glass, if you want to call it, for you to be able to manage it. If I go to show more, there is a whole lot of other components that get added here. And this is some stuff that you already know. Your monitoring and your health, your user experience, and so forth, right? So that's under your protection component or identity component, right? If I go to the next blade, which is protection, I can look at identity protection and verification, your conditional access into your systems, your security center, and this covers your secure score for your 365 posture. If you are the GA of your tenant, you're able to even pull that data in here as well. Then you've got your identity secure score, which is new, which shows you that risky user behavior. Are they downloading or attempting to download stuff? Are they trying to go into certain restricted sites many times? Are they plugging in USB devices if you haven't locked that down? Are they doing risky behaviors? Now, it correlates the data into that score, but it also gives you a dashboard view here under risky activities for you to be able to see. Because this is a vanilla demo portal, a lot of the data is not available for me to show you, but I'm going to leave it to run after the session for a couple of days, and I'm going to send you a couple of screenshots to Mel, and she's going to then share that with you just to show you exactly how that data looks. So then you obviously got the identity governance that I mentioned, right? And you can see identity governance, you can look at your access reviews, privilege identity management, and that's that workflow lifestyle that I mentioned, where you can create the onboarding of the users and the offboarding of the users based on templates. And the component that I'm going to demo or jump into, which I found really useful in terms of organizations and access control a lot, is something which is called verified ID. So now in your verified ID section, what you can see is you create an ID template here, right? Or I could create a verification request, especially when you're working in a dev environment and you're calling lots of APIs. You want to make sure that those API calls REST are always secure. Sometimes our dev teams will use REST APIs and so forth, but you can add an additional layer here with the verified ID to actually secure that. You can see my domain is verified here. And what every employee now gets is this little card here on your Authenticator app, which actually shows when if I on my Authenticator app, if I could show you that, it would have my name here, and it says verified employee, and it says DataWise Technologies. So it actually can be styled or customized or branded, as we say, as per your organization CI guide and so forth. Okay, so let's jump into this component. So if I were to create a new credential, you can see it'll automatically, if I've got more domains on my tenant, it would have given me a drop down and I can choose which domain. All right. Then I can do a verified employee credential, or I can design my own from scratch, meaning I've already created a template. I could use a template for every employee now that joins DataWise Technology Holdings or whatever the case may be. And then on my security that I showed you on the side by the users, I could manage what access they get into which systems. So this is how it all fits together in the puzzle, if I were to say that. Okay. Once I go create verified employee, it's then going to ask me to scan the QR code again. It'll then pop that verified ID, authenticating me as a GA that I'm allowed to actually do that as well. So not anyone that gets into Entra Suite will be able to do that. There's also access controls around how you delegate access on who's granting access as well. Then let me jump into the web application that is created, right? So you can see that this is a web application that has laptops, and that's what I'm selling here. So if you need a laptop, shout, I'm just kidding. But now I'm going to say, okay, now I want to access discounts as an employee, as an example. So I'm going to click the access discounts. And if you notice here, yes, I can go email address and password, right? But I'm going to go verified ID. Okay, it's going to take a few minutes.
We have another question while we wait for that to come through, Inayeth. So question from Christoph: how does Secure Gateway compare with products such as Zscaler?
That is also a very good question. I think, look, Zscaler and Secure Gateway has both their benefits. The reason why, I see why the benefit of Entra Suite is because I'm not using another software outside of my Microsoft ecosystem. It gives you more value in that way. And then it really stands the test in terms of if you want to compare it to a Zscaler or any other type of solution, Microsoft's Secure Gateway really is powerful. And the telemetry data that you get out there, I find that very valuable. We use that a lot in our SOC. And it's a lot of the times, like I mentioned in earlier on, there's about 4,000, attacks on identity a lot. So it gives us a lot of telemetry data to act really fast on.
So, I mean, the capabilities overlap quite a bit, as I understand it, between those two solutions. But as you say, the Secure Gateway is very applicable to Microsoft environments because it's got full integration and everything else with all those capabilities. And as I understand it, Zscaler's then potentially suitable to multi-cloud and environments which aren't necessarily, all integrated with Microsoft. Is that a reasonable summary?
100%, Brian. That's 100%. I would summarize it in that way. And also, look, with your Entra Suite as well, you can bring in those multiple workloads now, like I mentioned, right? It allows you to extend now that accessibility even to non-domain applications as well. So really quickly, what I'm going to do, just as you can see, it gives me a little QR code. What I'm doing now is just taking a picture of that. It's going to launch the Authenticator app on my side, right? And it goes into the verified ID section, and you're going to see quickly the screen change, right? Okay, then it gives you a pop-up to say, do you want to allow access or you don't want to allow access to this particular instance, just like how you would get it with your multi-factor authentication using your authentication app. Now what you can see is immediately the web application is identified that I am a trusted employee, and you can see on the top screen it says that your discounts have been applied, and you can see there's a little line that on the actual price versus the discount. So this is the power of bringing all of the technology in terms of using your verified ID within your web applications or within your front-end systems that are client-facing as well as employee-facing as well that you use in your organization, because you can extend that secure and private access. And this is done through Secure Gateway, so a secure pipe that allows me to be able to transverse that API data and apply the discounts really quickly using code. I think that is me for time and demo. I think we could maybe open up, because we left some time in terms of questions. we can
Thank
open
you.
up the audience in terms of questions as well.
Thanks, Inayeth. Yeah, and we are running a bit short of time, so thank you for that. We've next one quickly is from Ryan. If you're already using Entra ID and you enable the Entra ID suite license, can the security controls be a phased implementation, i.e., enabling this for specific users and/or groups over time?
That's a good question, Colin. That I would recommend, because you obviously have the license in place, you've got the policies, and you've got the security roles already placed in there. You can enable it, in a phase approach. That's really recommended. And then after a while, you can then shut down the other components.
So in other words, it's not only possible, it's actually the recommended way of doing things.
It's a recommended Microsoft best practice way, yeah.
Another question. I've already synchronized my on-prem AD with Entra ID. Will I have all the functionalities of the Entra ID suite, even though my users don't have the Entra ID licenses?
So from a GA perspective, your admin portal will show you all of the features and components. But if you want to use the onboarding and offboarding components, it would not be applicable, because the users would need a license for that. So you'll have the features enabled in the portal, but not necessarily all the features will be able to be scaled down to user level.
But in other words, if you've got 10 users that have that license, you could apply rules or whatever
100%.
templates to those 10 users. Okay.
100%.
Lebogang, I think that answers your question. Ryan, hopefully you're happy. By the way, we are running over time, so if anyone needs to leave, please leave. Don't. We're not going to be offended. We have run a little bit over time, and Inayeth, I want to say thank you. That was very informative for me. Some of the questions that were sent in earlier, can we have a look at those quickly? And again, if you need to jump off, please do. But Inayeth, do you
100%.
have available?
Yeah, let me bring them up.
I can post them into the chat quickly for you.
So one of the questions was, can Entra be used to authenticate devices that cannot be connected to a domain network in a hybrid environment? I think if we looked at the components that I shared, yes, definitely it can be. It works really well in a hybrid environment as well. So you can extend the functionality of Entra ID, especially the ID protection or the governance component as well. The next question that we do have is, how does Entra handle GPO management and registry edits? It can be configured to do that, but in Microsoft's sort of technical config, and I haven't done this yet, but from what I've heard from our technical teams and also from Microsoft's blogs and stuff and MVPs, they recommend that you use your Microsoft Endpoint Manager to manage the GPOs and the edits itself specifically. So it doesn't have the full functionality yet for you to do it, but it is on the Entra Suite, how could I say, product roadmap for them to include the GPO management and registry edits as well.
Would I be wrong in saying that you would use Intune for that type of
that is correct?
Endpoint management. Okay.
100%. That is correct. And then the one question is regarding the so what is the process for upgrading Racket's devices to work with Entra? And then there's another one that I'll just read out the other question as well, so I'll cover both, is what is the backup options available for Entra ID? An example would be like Red Store, which does backups particularly. So in terms of the upgrading part for Racket's devices, first, I mentioned it briefly, but I'll cover it. To upgrade the device specifically with Entra, for it to get the full functionality, first you have to update the firmware on the devices itself. Make sure that that's fully up to date. And once you do that, you can then actually bring it into the Entra Suite. You can use the secure gateways, or you can even use you get something which is called private DNS as well, that you can bring it in that way as well. So there's a few ways that you can bring it into and manage it from the Entra Suite as well. I have a document detailing how that process is done. I'm very happy to make it a part of the pack that we share, and we can distribute that, Colin.
Just excuse my ignorance, Inayeth, but what would the benefit be of connecting Entra with a Wi-Fi system like Ruckus? I mean, because it seems to me like it's a per user, identity management system. Like, what are the benefits of linking it to the Wi-Fi?
Specifically, if you want to get that telemetry data, Colin, and you want to make sure that you are monitoring the network across all postures, and you bring it into that one single pane of glass, right? Although it is specifically the identity and the governance around it and so forth, but it also gives you that flexibility and agility as well. So central management, I would say, if you were to highlight it, as well as it integrates into your automated user provisioning and enterprise state roaming and so forth as well.
Okay. It looks like Christoph, you're raising your hand. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, sorry, I got my question in a bit late. At the moment, we have a big reliance on setting up a radius service to authenticate things like Wi-Fi. Would Entra be able to replace our need for a radius service?
Good question. Christoph, could you maybe just unpack a little bit more in terms of the services? Is it more from an infrastructure perspective, or is it databases, or you're doing some calculations with AI? Just a little bit more so that I can answer.
It is primarily related to authenticating users onto my Wi-Fi. So if I connect to my Wi-Fi today, I can enter my AD credentials to connect to the Wi-Fi just because I set up a radius service inside of Azure.
Okay, perfect. No problem. Got it. So you can use Entra Suite to do that, and you'd use the secure internet or private access to actually do that. And you can configure it with using their, your managed identity, or you could use your username and password still. The additional component that you can configure is the one that I showed, which is the verified ID. So the person will actually just authenticate using the Authenticator app and get into the Wi-Fi.
So just to follow that up, I presume it's got a lot to do with what kind of firewall and edge devices you have in your environment that will be able to support this.
That would be one component, yes, Christoph, 100%. That would be one component as well.
So it's 90% of these devices today, they support you configuring a radius service by an IP address that you fill in, that you point that edge device to your radius service. How would we go about on establishing that configuration?
So with the Entra Suite, you point it to your private access, because obviously you got to guess access on your Wi-Fi, but obviously this is for your employees and your staff members in the office,
yes.
Right? So you would point it to private access in a similar way that you're pointing it currently now. It has the same pathway to connect. It's literally a data connector that you would connect it into Entra Suite.
Okay, I would like to investigate that on my.
I do have also. Sorry to overlap you there. I do have documentation that walks you through that pathway that we can also share with you.
Please do. Thank you.
100%. No problem.
Thank you. Thanks, Inayeth. We are on the stroke of 1 p.m., so we are over time, and I apologize to everyone, but I really enjoyed that session. Inayeth, thank you very, very much. And guys, you'll see Mel's put a message in there about our next event. But in addition, as I mentioned, any feedback you can give us, any ideas for future events, we'd love to hear about it. Thank you for joining today, and we hope to see you at the next event. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Melissa. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you very much.